What up, dude bros? I'm Frank. This is a video review of the Nerf Terrascout, an RC tank with a built-in blaster that you can fire remotely with a little built-in camera. Very cool package. Lots to cover with this thing, probably a long review, but let's get into it. Included is the base or the tank part, the blaster part, an 8-round stick mag, darts, a battery, a charger, the controller, and the instructions. Align the colors of the rainbow and snap this stuff together. Then slide it on in there. Nice click. This is the included tank battery and charger. This can snap together like this. Then you plug that on into your wall. The controller, of course, needs separate batteries than the actual tank. On the back, you can remove this screw to install the 4 AA alkaline batteries. Lots to cover. Let's go over the externals first and then the function, firing, and all of that cool stuff. Starting with the base unit, this is what makes it move. It's like a tank thing. This works like a lot of other RC vehicles on the market right now, but this is not really a car, it's a tank, which means it has these tracks. This makes it easier to climb over weird stuff, like some wheels, if they're too small in RC cars, when you run from like hardwood into carpet, your car will like stop. This is a tank, so it's just like lay nope, and it just rolls over absolutely everything. Tank versus car, there are pros and cons, but you can look that up separately. Tanks, I think, are great for this type of vehicle to be kind of all-purpose and to go over more terrain than cars. The battery for the vehicle part is underneath the carriage in here. You remove the screw and then the plate will pop off. This is the included battery. It's a rechargeable nickel metal hydrate battery, which means you don't have to go out and waste a bunch of money on a bunch of like AA alkalines or really, really heavy like D batteries. I think that was a really good call by the manufacturer. Rechargeables are awesome, and to include that. And this battery runs the tank and the movement part as well as the blaster firing part, so you don't have to deal with multiple battery packs. The radio does work on different batteries though. Reinstalling the battery works just like any other RC car. The packaging does say to not use this tank near water, and that's probably because they put the battery on the bottom, but they do have this foamy rubber gasket around the rim here to try to keep out some moisture that, even though it's there, I would not suggest you challenge it. It's not truly waterproof, but it'll keep out maybe the accidental spill. I would not recommend driving it through muddy environments if you're going outside though. In the back region, this is how you turn on the vehicle. There's just a simple on button. And then there's a slider that reads 1, 2, 3, 4. That's for the channel frequency to match your radio, just in case you wanted to have 4 of these roaming around together. If everything's on the same frequency, you could have interference, or one remote could be controlling 2 of them. You know, to keep that simple, it's pretty nice just to hit the same channel on here and here. External features of the blaster, it works very similar to a Rapid Strike. Up front, there is an in-strike attachment nozzle. I was not expecting that. I think that's awesome. So if the tank isn't cool enough, you can make it a freaking sniper mode tank. Look at this. It is worth noting the firing performance is awful like this, and if you want to elevate the blaster up and down with the radio, the motor's not strong enough to move that much weight. If you put on just a little attachment though, it can move up and down. And can you scream tactical any louder? Moving up a little bit on the front, this is where your camera is housed. The camera will shoot a live feed to your radio. We'll go over the radio in a second. Underneath here, there's a tactical rail, and up here, there's also another tactical rail. I'm super impressed with the rails and the nozzle. It feels more in-strike and more like a normal Nerf blaster if you want to put on your attachments and cool stuff. Will it be practical? Probably not, but it makes it look awesome, and that's kind of what it's about. Up in the top here, there's an SD card reader. That's where you put in your SD card if you want to record gameplay footage. Putting in the SD is not necessary if you just want the live feed to your radio. That's only if you want to record the footage. And after you see the footage, you probably, or almost definitely, won't really want to waste the time to record. It's pretty low quality. The top rail is also kind of a carry handle, and with a lot of blasters, it's not really necessary, but with this, it's actually really helpful to be able to walk around with it and have a definitive place to safely put your hand without, you know, putting pressure on anything and like potentially ripping a part off, so that's nice. On this side, there's the access door if you have any jams. I did have 2 jams. I'm not sure if it was a crummy dart or user error, but it's worth noting I did have jams. So, you know, open up the access door, you pull out the mag, and you clear out the dead dart. On the other side is the magazine well. Magazine fed tank, oh my gosh. I mean, the Terra drone was cool. That was the one before this one, but it had a built-in cylinder system, so reloading it was a bit of a hassle. A lot of people run with magazines now anyways, so if you have this and you want to use it while you're still pew-pewing, go running up to this after you run out of ammo, throwing in another full mag and continuing, it's way faster, assuming you have a loaded mag ready to go. This magazine well is very similar to like the Rampage. It's really easy to take the mag out quickly. There's a little orange button in the back right there. In the back, freaking sling mount. I don't know what kind of operator would have this on a sling, but kudos if you're that operator status to have one. It's a pretty large item to have as a secondary or whatever, hanging around your back. There's also a little notch up in the top of the blaster here, which clamps onto your remote. I don't know any reason you do this to like play, but when you're storing the thing, so you don't accidentally lose track of your radio and your thing, it's nice that it clamps on there, then you can walk around with it, and it's one kind of unified package for mostly storage purposes, in my opinion. Now to the radio. It has the same on switch as well as the 4-channel selector. It's very similar to that on the tank base here. Then on the other side you have the record button, so you press that if you want to like start recording. It will live feed to you all the time anyways, you don't have to turn that on or off. Controlling the vehicle is really easy. This is forward backwards, this is left right. I do not want to like fling this off my table here. Forward, almost flung it off the table there, backwards, right, left. And the right-left doesn't work like a car where it turns the wheels. It turns like by putting push-pull into the tracks. Now to the triggers over here. The left button here is the up-down for elevation of the blaster. And this is what I was talking about. If you have too much weight on your muzzle, it's not strong enough to lift this, and it fails. But if you switch to something lighter, it can do that. Is that a big deal? No, I'm not even complaining about it. I wouldn't even expect this to have a tactical attachment, but pointing it out just in case you had totally intended to have like 25 barrels for that supreme sniper accuracy. And then the right trigger is fire. There's not a rev switch independent of the fire switch, but there's a safety in it, just like most Nerf blasters. You can't fire it if it's like one of the locks are disabled. It doesn't have the mag in, so it's not gonna fire. Then when you press go, rate of fire is pretty nice. Firing velocity is also pretty nice. And the response time from when you say go to firing is only a little bit slower than if I were holding like a rapid strike. Although the system of not having a rev switch independent of the trigger did lead to a few jams. Like with a rapid strike, if you press down the rev trigger and then you very quickly pull the trigger, sometimes you can jam because the flywheels haven't sped up to their max RPM yet. I had a few jams with this, and it sounded to me like that was the issue, like the flywheels weren't spinning fast enough to actually have a dart flung in there, so it kind of locked up. The radio also has a little crosshair thing in the center, so you can kind of sort of see where your barrel is pointed. It's not perfect, but it's pretty helpful. I initially thought to myself it would be kind of annoying to have it on the elevation point, because if you're pointed upward and trying to drive, it makes it kind of difficult because you're looking up into the sky, not where you're going. Imagine driving a car like this. I mean, crash much. But this ensures your camera is always looking where your barrel is, so you always know where you're shooting, which I think is nice. So I've talked enough. Let's get into the demo, the operational demo and the firing demo. My remote's crosshairs are right on this guy's head. So let's find out where it actually shoots. That was not his head. I cannot get it. That reminds me of a break dancer going like this. I can't break dance. also put this blaster on the chronograph and I got an average of 71 feet per second, which is almost right on the dot of the elite average right now of around about 70 feet per second. So firing velocity is what you should expect from other elite blasters. And the rate of fire is also pretty high. So the firing performance, I'm pretty happy with it. So breaking down sort of my opinion and my thoughts on all the different elements here, because it's a complicated blaster. Some people might say, oh, it doesn't have this, this, and this, so it's crap, but overall, I'm actually really happy with the Terrascout. First note, it's incredibly expensive. I don't really like to talk about prices because that changes over time. I like my videos to last a while, and that's also based on your location and your import laws and all of that stuff, so I don't really want to cover that. But I purchased this from local Toys R Us for $200 US, which is significantly more expensive than any other blaster on the market right now. I did say blaster, not that stupid go-kart thing. But if you break down what you're getting for that money, I wouldn't even say it's overpriced. Is it worth it for everybody? Definitely not. That's a lot of money that would be better spent on other stuff for Nerf. The Terra drone, that little spider crawler I reviewed, I wouldn't really recommend that to almost anybody. I didn't really like how it performed. It wasn't really good at what it was supposed to be doing. This blaster is actually quite good at what it's supposed to be doing. So the money issue is kind of definitely not for everybody, but if you have the money and you have a desire for this, it works well. Kind of multi-part opinion. The tank part first, it moves quickly. And with the tank wheels instead of traditional like RC car wheels, you go over lots of stuff. And that's not even for the hardcore outdoorsman who wants to go through the woods or anything, but I've had issues in my house when I have too small of a cart, like a RC car, then I go onto carpet and it completely screws up, or it's too slow on carpet because it's not designed for that. I have very thick, heavy shag rugs, which would give a lot of RC cars a lot of a hard time. This just ate through it and went really fast, and I really didn't feel any difference in speed or maneuverability from that compared to tile or stone or anything. Couldn't get clean footage of this traveling on grass, but it worked. I wouldn't say it worked extremely well, but it's way better than a car for sure. So speed, maneuverability, I'm pretty happy with it. One complaint I do have is with the radio. I found my controls were not really specific enough. I just wanted to turn a little bit. It was like, okay, let's go fully 90 degrees, or it'd kick around and it wouldn't allow me to do really fine changes. That's taking a lot of dexterity. It's possible, but if I were in a Nerf war trying to shoot somebody, or especially getting shot at, it's difficult to put that much energy and dexterity into the controls. Noise is also an issue, but that's kind of a universal annoyance of all RC moving things. And the balance of it is kind of funny because it has all this weight up at the top. Luckily, they put the battery at the bottom, and I'm sure they put it at the bottom for the center of gravity to be lower, which means it's more stable. I tried really hard to make this thing knock over because when you wiggle back and forth, you can get it to rock really easily, and it almost looks unstable. But I tried to tip it, and I couldn't. Like, I intentionally tried to tip it, and I could only get it over by kicking it over. So overall, with the movement and tank, works really well. As I mentioned, the performance out of the blaster works pretty well. 71 FPS average with a pretty decent fire rate. And it doesn't run on alkalines, it runs on that included battery pack. Now to the camera and the radio system. So the camera is pretty low quality. It only records at 480p. That's really bad. And in my recent Battlescout review, I kind of ripped up the Battlescout for having a 720p camera that only records at 30 frames a second. A number of viewers said, hey, that's good enough. And for the most part it is, but the Battlescout, when you're buying that camera, that's whole purpose is to record gameplay footage to share with your friends. So if it doesn't record at what's like kind of the norm, it's kind of useless, and I disagree with that. The Terrascout has a 480p camera, and I'm actually not even going to complain about it, because when it streams its video to this little receiver, that's 480p, well, I imagine. And you don't really need any higher quality in that little screen. They're not going to put in a really high def, LCD monitor in there, so it's good enough to aim and to drive around the thing. I put on my GoPro Session on the bottom rail here for comparison, and it kind of illustrates the point. Even if it had a really awesome camera, your footage is going to suck no matter what, because it bumps and put a camera on an RC car, it's gonna get really shaky. What I think you should take away from this is no matter what kind of camera you have built into your car, it's really not gonna be usable footage to share with your friends or put on YouTube land. So going to the cheaper 480p camera in here to feed just to this for live stream all the time, I think it's good enough. I would think of it as awesome live streaming with the ability to, in case you want to, also record with an SD card, but I would not think of this as a game camera that happens to be streaming. And that can kind of change your baseline for comparison. So, a lot of elements to consider if you're interested in purchasing one of these. My sort of too long didn't read, would I recommend it? Kinda, sorta, almost. That's not even a too long didn't read. Would I recommend every Nerfer go out and spend $200 US on this thing instead of other things, or just saving it for, college? No, definitely not. It's an excessive item that's not necessary for almost any Nerfer. It's not really necessary for any Nerfer, but does it do a good job at what it's supposed to be doing? I would say absolutely. If you add up the prices, this is essentially a Rapid Strike, which is about $35, $40 US, plus the RC car, which I don't know what those go for, $80 to $100 US. The camera system is, well, that's pretty inexpensive, but what's more important than that is the integration of that into a radio. Because if you glued a Rapid Strike to an RC car, That's awesome. Then you're just gonna like jerry rig a little button here to fire your rapid strike on your radio control thing, but this has the camera integrated with the tank movement up and down. For that integration system, it bumps the cost. So I think if you break it down like that, it's worth the money. So money is kind of a weird topic. Even if this retailed for $40 US, I couldn't say everybody go out and buy one, because even $40 is a lot of money, and I can't recommend anybody or everybody go and spend that. It does what it's supposed to do. I have very few gripes with the blaster. Could it get better? Potentially. I think it could be a little bit more stable while it's going, so it doesn't rock back and forth. The noise is a minor issue, but really with any RC car or RC tank, especially because of all these moving parts, I don't think that's a realistic gripe, but I'm going to add it to my gripes. And obviously the cost, which is high, and it's going to be on the con list, but again, I don't mean to gripe about the cost, because I truly think it's worth it. The $200 for this type of product. It's definitely not for everybody. I think I've said that about 25 times now, but I can't really complain about it. So hopefully I covered everything. I might make a part 2 follow-up to answer any questions or anything, so leave those in the comment section below. I'm trying to cover everything, but if I truly covered everything in my opinions on the theory of everything with the elevation, the camera, and all of that, this would be a 4-hour video. So if you have any specific questions, I might just make a follow-up. So hopefully I covered it enough. Again, I bought mine for $200 US from a local Toys R Us. The box said it's a Toys R Us exclusive, but that means it's probably going to be on Amazon and other online places eventually. But if you're trying to pick it up locally, check Toys R Us. I don't think Target will ever sell them. Put a link in the thing so you can buy the thing and then shoot the things at the people. Yeah. That's the review of the Terrascout blaster. Fun little toy. I'll be playing with it in the future. That came out wrong, but that is the review. Thanks so much for watching, and as always, stay tactical.